Let's have a look on the system management. First of all, a general overview. The Webex Contact Center Enterprise portal is a portal, a website, which is needed and used to configure the system. So it has a built-in rights and roles management. Here you can configure the agents, you can administrate the phones, you can even create your own call flows using this web-based front end. Let's have a closer look on the phone configuration. So within the Webex Contact Center Enterprise portal, we are able to add a new phone, as well as we can also maintain the voicemail. Here we see a list of all currently configured phones on the platform. Of course, based on the rights and roles management only, we can distinguish who can see what kind of phones. We can also manage the phone users. So that means the user which is using the certain phone, we can also maintain in here. We are able also to manage the voicemail. So if that phone has a voicemail, we can here turn on voicemail and configure the voicemail for this certain extension. Let's have a look on the administration of phones. This is the overview page. Within here, we can configure multiple things. For example, the phones. This is a list of phones on the system, and from here we can even go and configure the certain phone. So we see what kind of phone it is and what line has been assigned to it. Let's have a look on the user management. Here are all users configured. So we can go to the user, and from here we can administrate the settings for this certain user. Let's have a look on the agent management. So within the Webex Contact Center Enterprise portal, we have the possibility, based after we have created the phone and also the user for the phone, we can then create an agent. And for the agent, we can also specify what skills does the agent have, what settings does the agent have, etc. So here we can administrate the agent. We can then assign skills to the agent. So in this case, we assign from the right-hand side where we have the available skills, we can move them to the assigned skills. Or the other way around, that we have assigned agents and available agents, which we can maintain within this tool. The system does support something called a scheduled reskilling. So that means we can set up, for example, that a certain skill will be given or taken away from some agents based on a timestamp. So here we can configure with a recurring possibility to add or to remove skills from an agent based on time. Let's have a look on the system. First of all, we can determine with the users the rights and roles management. These users are currently configured on the system, and we can control who can see what kind of information. We can edit the user. We can add and remove skills for this certain person. We can reset the password. We can even clone the user in order if another agent comes into the game that we can give him the same settings like this one. Through the access groups access, we can then change who can see what and who belongs to what kind of organization. We can disable the certain user. And we have an access summary. So that means there's an audit log sitting behind, which is maintaining and also logging what did this certain user do. Let's go and edit a user. Here we can see the information for this certain user. And then we can set things like the agent team, where does he belong to, the agent desk setting, how's this agent desktop behaving. We can see the agent ID. All this information is maintained within this front end. If we want to skill this person, we go into this area and then we see these skills have been already assigned to this certain person, and here we can then add an additional skill if necessary. And in the same way, we can also, of course, remove a skill. Let's have a look on the team resource management. Of course, we need to assign agents to teams, and in order to give them the appropriate look and feel on the agent desktop within the Cisco Finesse front end, as well as from reporting purposes or perspective, where it's necessary that a certain person or agent belongs to a certain team. There we can manage the agents within the team and in its assignments. So it's a kind of a list where we select the agent team. We can see the assigned agents and the available agents, and we can move them back and forth between these two. The same for the supervisors. We can remove or even add another supervisor to the certain team. Let's come to phone book configuration. In the demo before, we have seen within Cisco Finesse there are phone books. These phone books can be maintained also with the rights and roles management within the platform. So for example, here there's a phone book. This phone book has currently 2 entries, and here we can add and remove additional entries. The phone book is assigned to an agent team, so all people within the agent team have access to the phone book. Let's have a closer look on the reasons. Reasons means we do have 3 different kind of reasons. So we have not ready reasons. So I'm not ready with a reason training as an example. And we do have wrap-up reasons, which come after the call. So where we can say this was a sales call, this was an order, this was a complaint, which can be reported on later on as an example. And we have lockout reasons or sign-out reasons. So that means in the end of the day, if I close the desktop, I can also select a reason, for example, end of shift. This is also maintained within the tool. So we have also here a list of available resources and assigned resources, and we can move the items in between. Let's have a look on the dialer. So within the Webex Contact Center Enterprise, there's the Cisco dialer as part of it. The Cisco dialer can be maintained and the campaign can be managed using this tool as well. So for example, some basic settings like lines per agent, so with how many lines do I dial out for when an agent is available, and also the lines. These things we can control within the tool. We can also turn on and turn off the call progress analysis. So that means the analysis, for example, if a voicemail system is connected or not, as well as we can also specify the outgoing number. So when the dialer dials a customer, what number is displayed on his phone. That can be configured here as well. Last but not least, we have the possibility as well to turn on and turn off the answering machine detection, or we can even transfer a dialer call into an IVR campaign and let the IVR play announcement, let that put into a queue and then send to an agent as an example. Let's have a look on the system how the dialer configuration works. So we do have campaigns. Here you can see all configured campaigns. As stated before, we have two different kinds of campaigns. We have an agent-based campaign, where the calls are presented to agents, and we have an IVR-based campaign, where calls are not going to the agent. They initially go first on an IVR, where they're going to play announcements to the caller back, and then, depending on the use case, queuing it to an inbound agent and then send the call to an agent. Let's have a look on one of the campaigns. Within the campaign control, I can specify the maximum lines per agent, also the maximum, and when should the campaign stop. I can select the mode, if it's simply a predictive, progressive, or preview mode. In the dialer settings, I can see, for example, which number should be displayed to the caller on receiving a dialer call. So the customer will see this on his phone. And of course, we can there also configure the retry options. So for example, if the caller is not taking the call, the customer is not answering the phone, what is the delay for making the retries as an example? Last but not least, the call progress analysis can also be controlled in here, where we can use, for example, the answering machine detection to turn on. So that means when the dialer detects a voicemail system at the customer, then the call either gets abandoned or gets sent to an IVR, depending on the use case. Let's have a look on the call flow editor. So we do have the interaction manager designer. Within the designer, we have the possibility to create own call flows, even without touching the Cisco scripting. So that means, as an example, let me open up one call flow. And here you can see what happens to this certain flow. So the call comes in on the phone number, it gets a greeting message, and then there's a check for opening hours, and based on what we have, for example, if it's a holiday or when it's closed, an audio message is played. Otherwise, the call proceeds and gets into the queue. Let's create an own call flow. I can specify, even if I have a predefined call flow like the one before, I can use it as a template and make a copy of it and modify it afterwards. So let's start a call flow. So let's drop in. The call comes in on this number. We can then play a message. For example, welcome. So here on the settings for welcome, for the audio file name, I can select the WAV file I would like to play. Here I have a selection of multiple WAV files, which I then can select. I can even listen to them if necessary in order to determine the correct WAV file. Let's put the call afterwards in queue. Now within the queue, I can then determine which skill should be used in order to queue this call. So I can make a selection out of the skills on the system and put it on the certain skill. So here's what I did. So if I require to change a message or to turn it on, I can go to the certain flow, going to, for example, the emergency message, and through the audio file name, I can then add a new file. We can also upload, of course, other files. So that means we have something which is called an audio manager. The audio manager is able to hold all WAV files which are needed in order to play or to be referred on in the call flow. So for example, for the emergency, we have a WAV file uploaded in here, and from the upload, then we can even play it, and then we can even enable it within such a call flow. Let's have a look on the WAV file management. Here we can see that there are an emergency message as an example, and within here we can then either play this announcement or we can even upload the file. Let's come to switches. In order to control the service center and also things like, for example, the emergency, we can put switches into the system. So every switch has a unique name. We can turn it on and off, and it has also the possibility to be scheduled. For example, to get a reset after a certain amount of time. So for example, we can place an emergency switch and let it turn off or disable it after 2 hours. We are also able to place things like a skill overflow timer. So that means, for example, when the call is queued on the support group, and let's say after a certain amount of time, which you can control here, for example 60 seconds, then this call gets forwarded to another group, to an overflow service. Also, things like these are able to be controlled, having a reset timer in here as well. If we work with the expected wait time overflow, we can also specify after how many seconds of the expected wait time the call should overflow to another group. Therefore, we create a new switch, and this switch is called an overflow switch. And here, after 45 seconds, as an example, the calls are going to be sent to another group if the expected wait time is higher than this certain value. If we require to work on a customer segmentation, for example, to identify VIP customer or non-VIP customer, we can maintain lists within the platform. So that means we are able to have it, for example, for email, where we specify the email address and we specify a classification. For example, this is a B and this is an A customer. Within the platform, we can also use the skill-based routing capabilities. So that means we have a proficiency level. So we can also set for each agent a skill based also on his proficiency. So for example, for language skills, we can give him a certain skill between 1, which is the lowest one, and 10 is the highest for the certain skill. Of course, we can also define the queuing steps. So that means within the precision queue, there's the possibility that we can also maintain the waiting time for each queuing step. For example, in this example here, we see we first queue to the possibility central equals true and service experience greater 5. So we search with these criteria for an agent. If we don't find anyone after 10 seconds, we move to the second step. We can also set the channel priority. So that means, for example, if it's a chat, we can set the priority to 2. If it's voice, we definitely will put it to 1. And for email, where we can put it, for example, for 3, level 3. So that means, first of all, voice is worked on, then chat, then email. But this can be customized. When more agents are available, then we have the possibility to select the agent order. So we can say if we have 2 agents available, we can determine if we want to have the longest available agent, the most skilled agent, or the least skilled agents to take this certain call or email or chat. Let's have a look on the VIP list routing. So if we have a VIP list for customers, so for example, these ANIs or these phone numbers of customers, we can also set up a table where we can respond to if this is a VIP customer or not. So if it's a 1, this is a VIP customer, this is not a VIP customer. This can be maintained then within the portal as well. If we require to maintain a blacklist, so that means people calling in with this certain phone number are not allowed to reach the service center. So these numbers are going to be blocked or going to be played with a message and then hang up. Let's have a look on the switches and also on the list management. So first of all, let's have a look on the emergency switch. So here's a switch which is currently turned on. I can move into this one. I can turn off emergency if I want to, and I can even set a daily reset if necessary after a certain amount of time. Let's have another look. For example, setting up the voice priority. So the voice priority is handled in this here. So we can even decrease the priority if necessary to another limit. And the same we can do for chat and email as well. Let's change the overflow timer for the expected wait time. Let's change from 60 seconds. So that means if expected wait time is bigger than 45 seconds at the moment or 60 seconds now, then the call should go to an overflow group. Let's have a list of the blacklist numbers. So here, this is the blacklist. So I can add a new row, can specify a number, and put it on the blacklist. Let's have a look on customer classification as a table view. Here we can see multiple lines. For example, these two, this one currently, this number is not a VIP customer. This one is a VIP customer. If I want to add a new one, I simply go into here. I add a new phone number and I enter the VIP flag. Now this phone number here is also a VIP and is then queued with a higher priority in the system. Thank you for attending this session about the Cisco Contact Center Enterprise.